All right, let's delve into the topical issue for today, and that's the report by the Pan-Yoruba Socio-Political Organization, Afenifere, stating that the plan by the federal government to ban commercial motorcycle and mining activities as part of a strategy to curb insecurity was another evidence that scientific thinking does not characterize decision-taking in the corridors of power. You'd recall that the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, addressing journalists after the National Security Council meeting presided over by President Muhammad Buhari, said investigation revealed that terrorists and bandits are using Okada to launch attacks. The minister said a nationwide ban on Okada would hinder their activities and also cut off their sources of funds. Now, joining us to discuss this is Lester Wilcox, a public affairs analyst, joining us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us, Lester.
Thank you. It's my utmost pleasure to be with you this morning.
Maybe we should start with getting your thoughts on the plan by the federal government to ban commercial motorcycle as a way to curb insecurity in the country.
Well, I was personally taken aback with that news, but of course, when it comes from the top echelon of security architecture in terms of decision making, talking of National Security Council, I think they must have had a lot of considerations with respect to the pros and the cons of Okada, or I mean, probably the motorbikes, probably called Okada, in terms of the operation in Nigeria. So they must have had extensive security briefing, extensive consultation, extensive discussions. Well, as far as it's now, it's still at the realm of speculation, because most often than not, at that level of decision making, the microeconomic situation is not always being considered, and I doubt if they also consider the various uses of motorbikes. It's not only for transportation; it's also used for logistics purposes and some other uses. So I don't know if they considered all that in its all ramification in order for them to mooch that idea. It has not yet been done. It is still an idea that needs to be fine-tuned. And then again, what is the role of the federal government in terms of transportation? Because most of these Okada or motorbikes for transportation are used in states, and I think states have policies on transportation. So does the federal government have the capacity or the reason to impose a blanket policy of transportation among states and local governments? So these are some of the nitty-gritty areas. But the reasons given for it is understandable, but I don't know how a ban will stop terrorists from using it.
So how is the reason understandable if you don't see any reason or any relationship between the ban of motorcycles and the stop or curbing insecurity in the country?
Well, I just said, understandably, as to the fact that the reasons given is that it's trying to curb terrorism. Of course, it's not only terrorism. We also know that motorbikes, still insecurity. Motorbikes are used by armed robbers. They're used by pickpockets, snatchers. They're used by hired assassins and all the other ones, and the whole gamut of other nefarious people. But what I'm saying is, I don't know how that ban, I'm talking of ban now, will stop terrorists. Now, remember, terrorists, they don't live among humans. They live in the forest, in the desert. So they have it. So, and they don't use it in terms of regulated usage. They use it to launch attacks and disappear back into the forest or wherever they find themselves. So, except you're saying cut off of new supplies, but again, they don't get their supplies through the regular sources. They get their supplies through the back end and all whatnot. They're not registered. Their bikes are not registered. So we've seen where terrorists come in hundreds of bikes, swoop on the community, swoop on their target, carry out the activity, and then disappear back with those bikes into their hideouts. So that's what I'm saying. I understand the reasons being adduced, but I do not know how that reason is sufficient enough as to be able to stem terrorism that they are now talking about. I mean, that is the basis upon which is going to be, the ban is coming up.
Okay.
Okay, you've raised salient, views regarding this issue or this speculative move by the federal government. But let's look at it from the angle at which the federal government is coming from regarding, the possibility of shutting down or curbing terrorism to its barest minimum. Are motorcycles rather the only means of transportation for these bandits? We've also heard of reports where they came in, various buses, coastal buses and what have you. In that instance, if the motorcycles are banned, which again, as you've said, may be difficult considering different states have their own, laws on transportation and what have you, how does the banning of motorcycles really affect the war on terrorism, or rather impact the war on terrorism? Because they can also, make use of other means of transportation aside motorcycles.
Yes, thank you. And that's almost like what I said in my opening speech. The motorcycles are not the only means they use. However, I think in recent times they found the motorcycle a more what I would call a more lettered means, or a more effective means within which to come out from the bushes, from the hideouts. The motorbikes do not need spaces to move. They need just road path, footpath, which vehicles can really not navigate. Those thick forests, motorbikes can navigate it easily. The deserts, the motorbike can navigate it easily for them, and so they can use it in terms of launching surprise attacks on communities, and easily get away before and then faster before unlike using the conventional vehicles. Even when vehicles are being used, we know that they are using hillocks. In the early days of this, they were using hillocks.
Yes.
And one will begin to wonder. If you've captured one hillocks, you can be able to trace so many, where it comes from, the sources, because of their numbers and everything, where it passes through. Even from the manufacturers, you can know who purchased those vehicles. But unfortunately, even as at them, I'm talking about 2011, 2012, or 2013, when hillocks was what they were using to mount gunboats. I think the government didn't do anything then.
Yeah.
So if as at that time you capture some hillocks, you have their chassis number, you have the engine number, and you can go back to the manufacturer, in fact online, to know who purchased those vehicles, to know how they were transported into the areas that they were used. So they didn't do that. So that is why a lot of people, including myself, while understanding the pain and the objective of the government, but I doubt if that will really curb it, because, like I said, they don't register their motorbikes, they don't get it through the normal sources. They go through the black market and through third party and other means, but usually they get their motorbikes. They
even tell the victims to get them, or the families of the victims to get their motorcycles.
Exactly. Yes, those who are kidnapped to buy motorbike in exchange of ransom and all whatnot. Now, so if you're going to ban motorbike because of terrorism, what about other usage? Those who are doing logistics. Today, logistics is the main thing. It's a big industry.
Yes.
And it's growing, in leaps and bounds. They say necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, but let me come in there, Mr. Lester. You look at Lagos. Is this a case of copy and paste? Because yes, we know that recently in June, the Lagos state effected the ban on motorcycles in the state, and of course now we're looking at Nigeria as a whole. Shouldn't Lagos be a prototype? Is it effective in Lagos? Has it reduced the crime rate, insecurity in Lagos, before we now extrapolate to the whole nation?
Well, Lagos is not just the first state to ban motorbike. As a matter of fact,
but the most recent. Lagos is the most recent.
The most recent. Motorbike transportation started in Calabar, in Cross River State, in the 80s. That's when motorbike transportation started. Started in Calabar, where they used to call it Akauke, means where are you going? But during the time of Duke, he banned, if the originators of the program can ban it, because they find out that it was now being used for other purposes. Unfortunately, the same when one bad apple can spoil the entire broth.
Yeah.
If the few criminal elements will make the state a state like Cross River where it started to ban it. Then others they started following suit. I mean, Lagos. This is not the first time Lagos banned. Lagos have had restrictions and restrictions and restrictions. Of course, in Lagos, it's still restriction. It's not really ban. It's still restriction because they identify local governments where you cannot use it. I'm sure I'm sure you are in Koshofe. Koshofe is not affected. I'm in Shomolu. Shomolu is not affected by the ban, so there's still a lot of Okada and bikes going about. But more still, the fact that when Lagos banned those electronic ones, the ones that use app, talking about the OP and all
the
those
right,
of these,
the e-hailing
yeah,
platform.
the e-hailing platforms. When Lagos banned them, yes, when Lagos banned it last, I think year before last, that gave rise to a lot of road vehicles being converted to logistics. And like I said, necessity is the mother of invention converted to logistics. So now, if the federal government is talking about a blanket ban on the entire country, they are going to rob a lot of usages, a lot of livelihood, because let's also know that these bikes, even though they are no longer like in Lagos, they work in the city center, even in the states where it is banned. It works in the rural areas. It works in villages. It works in rural areas, and in those rural areas, that is the only means of transportation. Because let's face it, vehicle transportation is, I mean, because of the high cost of vehicles,
Yes.
and the non-availability of the type that is used for transportation. Now, do you see all those Kumbi buses any longer? Are you seeing all those C20 and E20 buses that are used for transportation any longer? They're no longer available. What you see now is these Korokwe, these smaller ones.
Yes.
Because the manufacturers of those other ones no longer manufacture them. So transportation vehicles for is fast depleting. What you have now is very old stocks, and so most people that cannot even change their stock, you know. So the transportation, the bikes become more prominent in rural areas, even in some cities, in most rural areas. We discovered that in most cities, even in Kanu, Kaduna, in most city centers, they've banned the bikes. Bikes are banned, but it now works in the rural areas, and of course, it produces a lot of income for people. It's also produces a lot of job opportunities for a lot of people because the mechanics are working. Because the mechanics work, those who buy, those who work, those who provide the spare parts, the tires, they are all engaged. So it's a whole blockchain of.
Well said,
Okay,
Lester.
Let's look at. I understand your point of view concerning the various uses of this means of transportation and those who will be affected. But let's still zero in on that of insecurity. If the federal government is planning or trying to cut out rather the means of transportation for these terrorists so as to cripple their activities, is that going to be effective in the fight against terrorism, considering that there's still the place of arms and ammunition getting to these people? You still have their financiers as well. So shouldn't the federal government be going for the jugular in terms of the war chest, which enables them to get arms, ammunition, and what have you, rather than just the means of transportation? A ban on motorcycles is just a part of it, a minute part in terms of the means of transportation.
Exactly. You cannot be more correct than what you just said. The ban on, like I said, how many of these motorcycles being used are in the hands or being used by the so-called by the criminals?
Yes.
And by the bandits? I mean, if you compare in the numbers, it's minute. I mean, they can swoop on a community with 200, but even in a state, maybe it's Zamfara state or something.
Exactly.
If you take 200 bikes out of the entire user of bike, it might have over 10,000 bikes being used in Zamfara for transportation.
Yes.
Take 200 or even 1,000 as the ones in hand of terrorists or criminals. Of course, you have, and you cut, and because of that, you cut off every other person that has a value chain in terms of economic activity. I don't think you've done anything.
But another activity that would affect the economy is the mining that the federal government is also planning to stop to curb insecurity. What's the relationship? You just mentioned Zamfara, which is known for mining activities. What's the relationship between these activities and curbing insecurity?
Well, there is. I don't have the security report or data with respect to that, but it has been conspicuously said that what started the problem in Zamfara it's as a result of the illegal mining activity that goes on in Zamfara. Of course, and then of course, when you are doing anything illegal, you will need non-state actors to protect you. And so you see, both state and non-state, depending on your muzzle, in terms of how your muzzle goes to get either the conventional police and state actors, and then those who cannot get that, they go for non-state actors. And so it has been said that that was the origin of the insecurity challenges in Zamfara. Now, this mining is illegal. The ones that we are talking about is illegal. Government has a proper procedure for obtaining mining license and mining through the Federal Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, I think so. So those ones cannot be. You cannot even right now. Those mining is illegal. So I don't know what you're going to ban again.
Okay, yes, I was going to ask you, Lester, should cutting off the head be the solution, or just fixing the the wound, or just dealing with the illegality of the mining itself?
Well, a South African police officer once cut off the head of the snake. The body is useless. Well, I mean, in the case of Mandela, I think it's also good to look at how to cut off the head. But are you cutting the head or the tail in your approach? With this approach, are you cut off the head or the tail of the snake? Because if you don't fix with adequate security and clear up and do a thorough approach, because and don't forget, my dear, there are big men, there are big powerful men behind the illegal mining. Is not what is done by the everyday man on the road. It's a serious thing, and so it is better you go for the head of the snake, and anybody that can fix that head of the snake, because people like the governors that served in Zamfara, they have been fingered as being part of the problem that created this illegal mining. Some governors that served as governors of Zamfara have been fingered. People that are powerful emirs and having fingers as being the kingpin behind the illegal mining activity. Because, like I said, it's not done by everyday mining. It's done by people that has connection, that has the market, that has what it takes to carry out such activity. So, I think the government needs to step up a lot of things. It's not just banning, because if you have license, if you regulate something, you can ban it. But what you don't regulate and what is illegal, for instance, you can only fight it just the way you are fighting illegal bunkering in the south. That's the way to do it. If you have illegal bunkering is banned, it is still going on because you don't have control. So what you do is to fight it.
But the outright ban would affect the economy. That's my concern. The fact that there would no longer be mining activities.
I see. I'm not sure they will ban. I'm not sure the government will ban anybody they have given license to mine.
Okay.
You cannot ban somebody who have given license to mine. You give somebody a 10-year license lease or something that provides job, pays taxes. You can't ban such a operation. What I'm sure what they're looking at is those illegal mining. So I want to ban the legal ones, or a blanket ban, and then the legal ones that provide source of income for the government, for the citizen, pays taxes, are not affected as well. And while the illegal ones, because they're illegal and you've not been able to do anything substantial to curb their illegality, and then they continue in business, I don't think the government is that is that unwise or unsmart not to know the difference between those the legally licensed to mine and where their mine is, and then go after with full enforcement or the full weight of the law to those that are illegal and know how to bring them in or curb their activities, so that and then bring to book the kingpins that are financed. Because sometimes it is also said, I'm only quoting what I mean. I don't have facts about that.
Yes.
That some of the money that comes from illegal mining is what is used to fuel the insecurity. So government has a lot to do in terms of investigating, in terms of intel, to be able to really, with seriousness, really, if there's no compromises here and there, to get to the bottom of the financiers, those that are involved in illegal mining activities across the length and breadth of Nigeria. It's not only in Zamfara. We have illegal mining in so many places, even on those states where you have illegal, quarries and all whatnot. Gold and being mined illegally in Ekiti State and all the Osho and all those. So there are a lot of illegal mining sites, but you see, unfortunately, when we're talking about illegal mining, everybody's mind go to Zamfara. And unfortunately, with the Southern press, we are always guilty of the fact that we don't expose what happened down south. We always want to promote what happened what will not propagate what happened in the north. But down south here, there's lots and lots of illegality in terms of mining. There's a lot of illegality in terms of what they call it, in terms of breaking of pipelines and the
Oil
illegal
bunkering.
Yes.
and all what. So much. I mean, they try to curb it at Arepo and the Korodu area. I think they did a good job to do that clearance operation. So that should also extend to so many places, so that we know the fights we have. We are fighting so many on so many. Look, the government's hands are full. The security agencies' hands are stretched and full. So they are fighting on several fronts, and so it also behoves on us.
We have to anchor this conversation here, but what would you propose as the way to tackle this level of insecurity in the country, and not just giving it this surface dressing?
Well, intel. That's just it. That's just the way to go. Intel. Credible intels that will lead to targeted strikes, targeted clearance operations, targeted decapitation of the terrorists, and then being able to fish out their sponsors. So, and then of course it takes a determined and a clean administration, a clean hands government, to not to mind whose ox is God, and to go all out to get the head of the snake, and that is the main financiers, where the source of arms, the source of logistics, and then when those are cut off, then you discover that the snake will be useless, and then you have a better victory as long as you want to do. But anything outside this window dressing of buying of Okada, proposing, they are good. I don't have all the facts. Like I said, I would always give that. I don't have all the facts that the government is at the disposal of the government, but I'm always looking at the fact that motorbikes are used for so many reasons, provide means of livelihood for layers and changes of value creation, value added to the industry, and so a blanket ban might not all go well for the entire, society.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on the show this morning, Alistair Wilcox, Public Affairs Analyst. Have a good day. All right, we've been talking with Alistair Wilcox on the proposed ban on motorcycles in Nigeria. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll talk more. Please stay with us.